The first thing Varnell Reddin noticed was that his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from fear. Not from adrenaline. Just cold. The kind that crept into your joints and made your bones ache like they'd been dipped in ice water. He curled tighter into the emergency foil blanket, but it crinkled uselessly against his chest. The heating unit in his suit had failed hours ago, and the rescue beacon was blinking dimmer by the minute. Above him, the sky was a smear of violet clouds, and the ground below was a cracked expanse of iron-gray shale. His escape pod had drilled a shallow ditch into the planet's surface when it crash-landed, half buried now under a layer of fine dust. His breath came in shallow bursts, fogging the inside of his helmet. Vitals still dropping, Varnell muttered through chattering teeth. Heart rates all over the place. Not good. Definitely not good. He coughed hard, doubling over slightly. The pain in his ribs flared. Bruised, maybe fractured. He'd taken a hard jolt when the pod slammed down. But that wasn't the main problem. The main problem was that he was freezing to death. The comms unit crackled faintly, then went silent again. The last message from the ship had been nearly 3 hours ago, just static and a brief squelch of something that might have been a name. Maybe his. He hadn't seen a single sign of life since the crash. Until now. A shadow moved along the ridge, long-limbed and thin, gliding rather than walking. It stopped, head cocked. Another followed, then a third. Varnell squinted through the cracked visor. The shape swam in and out of focus. His vision had started to blur, eyes watering from the cold. He reached up slowly, toggling the emergency flare on the shoulder of his suit. A burst of red lit the sky. The figures paused, then began descending the slope. Okay, he breathed. Let's hope you're not the kind that eats stranded pilots. By the time the aliens reached him, Varnell was slumped against the side of the pod. He tried to lift his head, but his neck muscles barely responded. One of the figures stepped forward, crouching beside him. It was tall, at least 7 feet, covered in a chitinous layer of dark blue skin, with wide, flat eyes and an elongated face. It tapped at his chest unit, then turned to the others. He is failing, it said in a low, warbling tone. Another alien stepped forward. Systemic organ collapse. The temperature has destabilized his kind's cellular structure. He is terminal, the first concluded. Varnell stirred weakly. No, not terminal. Just very cold. The alien straightened. One of them tilted its head. He vocalizes. Repeat, the second alien said. What did you say, organic? Not terminal, Varnell mumbled. Just need warmth. Soup would help. The 3 aliens looked at each other. Soup, said the third, a smaller one with a cluster of sensory nodules along its neck. Liquid nutrient paste, the first interpreted. Possibly a cultural remedy. He requests warmth and soup, the second said. Yet his body nears cessation. This indicates cognitive dissonance. Delirium. He is hallucinating, said the third. We must catalog the final vocalizations. No, Varnell groaned. No catalog. Just help. The first alien touched a device on its hip. A panel blinked to life, scanning over Varnell's frame. Internal temperature is below functional minimum. Cardiovascular system is deteriorating. He requires intervention. Then we move him, said the second. Agreed. They lifted him gently, surprisingly gently for beings with limbs like scaffolding, and carried him toward a narrow skiff parked behind the ridge. Varnell drifted in and out of consciousness, catching glimpses, metal walls, humming equipment, a pale blue glow overhead. The warmth hit him slowly, like stepping into a hot bath after a long winter hike. He groaned softly as his fingers began to unclench. The aliens placed him onto a padded surface, and one of them draped a thermal mesh over his body. Keep him conscious, said the first. If he sleeps, he may not reawaken. The second alien approached, holding a small bowl-like container. Steam rose from it, and the smell, though odd and vaguely metallic, was not altogether unpleasant. This is nutrient broth, it said. We calibrated it to his species' amino profile. Varnell blinked blearily. You made soup. We synthesized thermal sustenance, said the alien. You called it soup. He managed a weak smile. Close enough. They fed him slowly, and the warmth began to settle deeper into his bones. He recovers, the third alien noted. His vitals stabilize. He is not terminal, after all. The second alien nodded. Remarkable. Varnell let out a shaky breath. Told you. Just needed rest. And soup. The 3 aliens turned toward each other, murmuring in their own language. Eventually, the first turned back to him. You are of the vessel Varela, Registry L753, it said. Yeah, Varnell said. Pilot. Crash during atmospheric entry. Engine failure. We detected the debris field, said the second. Vessel's core ruptured. No other organics located. I was the only one in the escape pod. Others didn't make it. There was a pause. The third alien lowered its head slightly. We regret the loss, it said. Are you capable of communication with your species? No signal, Varnell said. Beacon's fried. If you've got long-range comms, I can try. The first alien gestured toward a console. We will escort you. But first, your body must fully recover. You are fragile. Thanks for the reminder, Varnell said, exhaling. How long until I'm back on my feet? The second alien consulted the scanner. You sustained mild rib damage. Muscular strain. Hypothermia. Recovery will require several rotations. That's days, right? 7 of your planetary cycles. Varnell groaned. Figures. You will remain here until then, said the first. Movement risks further injury. We will facilitate your healing. The second alien paused. And provide soup. Varnell let out a dry chuckle. I'm gonna owe you big time. You owe us nothing, said the third. We are researchers. This interaction is informative. Over the next few days, Varnell remained in the alien vessel, confined mostly to the thermal recovery chamber. The aliens introduced themselves, names translated loosely into phonetics he could understand. Grau, Venu, and Lizak. They were part of a scientific delegation sent to study planetary climates and their effects on organic life. His arrival had been, as Venu put it, a statistically improbable event. Despite their clinical approach, the 3 aliens seemed genuinely curious about him. They asked questions constantly about human biology, emotional responses to stress, even the symbolic significance of soup. Grau, the most inquisitive, once watched Varnell slowly eating a bowl and asked, does the act of ingestion convey emotional comfort, or is it purely nutrient-driven? Both, Varnell said. It's not just about the food. It's about what it means. Being cared for. Feeling safe. Lizak tilted its head. So the soup is a metaphor. It's also really tasty. Grau scribbled something onto a tablet. Fascinating. By the 4th day, Varnell could sit up for longer periods. He was still sore, and his ribs ached when he laughed, but the worst had passed. The aliens continued monitoring him, now with a degree of reverence that bordered on peculiar. You were categorized as terminal, Grau said one evening. Yet you recovered with minimal intervention. Minimal. Varnell raised an eyebrow. You literally built a heater under my bed and invented soup from scratch. Still, Venu said, your resilience is statistically anomalous. Humans aren't as fragile as you think, Varnell said. We break, yeah. But we don't stay broken. The aliens fell silent, digesting that. Then Lizak said, would you consent to being interviewed for our survival psychology archive? Only if you bring more soup. That night, Varnell lay back under the thermal mesh, staring at the softly pulsing lights overhead. He was still a long way from home, and the bruises hadn't faded, but the warmth had returned to his limbs. His chest rose and fell in a slow, even rhythm. He wasn't terminal. He just needed rest. And soup. By the 8th rotation, Varnell's legs stopped wobbling when he stood, and the dull ache in his ribs had faded to a manageable throb. He hadn't worn his flight boots since the crash, and the glossy surface of the alien floor panels made his socks slide more than he liked. Still, walking was possible now, and that was enough. Venu lingered by the chamber entrance, holding a compact device shaped like a folded leaf. It blinked green. You are ambulatory, it said. Unassisted vertical motion confirmed. Feels like a school nurse just cleared me for recess, Varnell said, adjusting the thermal wrap slung over his shoulders. What's next? A pop quiz. Venu's head twitched. If you're referring to cognitive testing, we already initiated those during your rest cycles. Wait, dreams count. Involuntary symbolic processing is highly informative. Varnell rubbed his face. Great. Hope you like the one with the talking refrigerator. It was very judgmental. This is consistent with nutrient anxiety. Lizak appeared behind Venu, carrying a tray with several translucent pouches filled with gelatinous streaks of color. We have adjusted your dietary protocol, it said. The previous formulation caused mild osmotic imbalance. These variants should be metabolically neutral. Varnell eyed the tray. These all taste like different colors of sadness, don't they? We lack taste receptors. Sadness is not a flavor. He peeled open the pouch with a green swirl and took a sip. It tasted like warm cucumber and static electricity. You're not missing much. Growl joined them, tapping something into a palm-sized panel. Your metabolic indicators suggest readiness for environmental re-entry. We propose a short excursion. You're letting me leave the ship? Varnell asked, surprised. Temporarily, Growl said. You must remain within atmospheric control boundaries. Planetary exposure is still hazardous. Venu motioned toward a side corridor. We have prepared a mobility suit. It is calibrated to your dermal conductivity and joint articulation. You mean it fits? Yes. The suit looked like a cross between a wetsuit and a beekeeper's outfit, but it was light and snug, with internal heating coils that buzzed faintly when activated. Varnell flexed his fingers inside the gloves and rotated his shoulders. It wasn't made for comfort, but it moved with him. Outside the ship, the landscape stretched in every direction, a vast, undulating plain of slate-colored gravel, interrupted by jagged outcroppings and narrow fissures. The wind carried fine grains of mineral dust that shimmered faintly under the cloud-choked sky. The aliens remained close. Growl held a small orb that projected a low-frequency field around them, creating a bubble of breathable air and stable pressure. Varnell crouched near a ridge, peering over. Looks like Mars had a grudge and started chain-smoking. This region is geologically unstable, said Lizek. The terrain undergoes frequent micro-collapses. I'm guessing that's your way of saying don't trip. Venu pointed toward a cluster of pale structures in the distance. Those were once habitation units. A previous species attempted settlement here. Attempted? Thermal regulation was insufficient. Their biology was not adaptive. Varnell gazed at the ruins' half-buried domes, slanted towers, and skeletal frames peeking out from the dust. So they froze. Structural records suggest gradual dereliction. Abandonment, not extinction. Smart choice. They walked in silence for a time, the ground crunching underfoot. Varnell's boots left shallow impressions in the dust. He watched as tiny crystalline insects skittered between rocks, vanishing into crevices when the group passed. Nothing larger moved. Eventually, Lizek paused near a thin metal pole protruding from the ground. At its base was a circular grate, partially exposed. This is an entry point, it said. The lower levels remain intact. You want to go down there? We wish to observe your response to unfamiliar architecture. I'm not an amusement park ride. Growl knelt and tapped a sequence into the pole. The grate hissed, then rotated aside. A narrow shaft led downward, lit by a pale blue glow. Descent will be brief, Venu said. Varnell sighed. If I get eaten by ghosts, I'm blaming all three of you. The ladder was cold and narrow. His gloves made gripping the rungs awkward, but he managed. At the bottom, the corridor opened into a chamber lined with curved panels and alien script etched into the walls. Dust floated in the air like lazy sparks. Lizek moved toward a central console and activated a projection. A series of images flickered to life. Diagrams, population models, climate simulations. One showed a humanoid figure huddled beside a heating unit. This species resembled yours, said Growl. Bipedal. Similar limb ratios. But their internal systems were highly specialized, inefficient, in fluctuating climates. Varnell stepped closer to the display. They built all this but couldn't survive their own thermostat? They lacked adaptive redundancy, Venu said. No secondary resistance to cold shock. Once thermal equilibrium was disrupted, failure cascaded. Sounds familiar. You recovered without augmentation, Lizek said. That contradicts our prior models. Maybe your models need more soup variables. Growl tilted its head. Are you implying nourishment influenced your recovery beyond biochemical necessity? I'm saying recovery isn't just numbers. It's stubbornness, memory, maybe even hope. Hope is not measurable. No, but it keeps you climbing ladders into haunted basements. They returned to the surface an hour later. The sky had darkened, and the wind had picked up, scattering grit against Varnell's visor. He tightened the seals on his suit and looked toward the horizon. Storm's coming, he said. Correct, said Venu. We must return to shelter. Back aboard the vessel, the interior lights adjusted automatically to compensate for external dimming. Varnell stripped off the mobility suit and slumped into the nearest cushioned surface. His legs ached. Growl handed him a fresh pouch. This one was amber with faint gold flecks. New blend. Varnell asked. We adjusted the flavor profile based on your neural feedback. He took a sip. It tasted faintly of cinnamon and something like roasted nuts. Not bad. still wouldn't trade it for a cheeseburger. We observed that your kind often associates specific foods with emotional memory. Is the cheeseburger significant? It's complicated, Varnell said. Let's just say it's edible nostalgia. Lizek sat across from him, its limbs folding neatly beneath its torso. Your survival behavior differs from expectation. You do not prioritize efficiency. Not everything's about efficiency, Varnell said. Sometimes it's about seeing another sunrise, even if it's behind purple clouds and tastes like battery acid. Venu studied him. You express humor when discussing mortality. Why? Because if I don't laugh about it, I'll cry. And crying in spacesuits is messy. The aliens were quiet for a moment. Then Growl said, we have encountered many species. Few recover from near-terminal states without external reconstruction. You did so through passive means and minimal intervention. Varnell drained the pouch. Maybe we're built to bounce back. Maybe it's just luck. Or maybe we've had to get good at surviving things we shouldn't. Lizek stood. Would you consent to extended study? We propose a structured observation period to understand your resilience patterns. Only if I get to name the next soup. Venu blinked. Accepted. That night, Varnell lay beneath the warming mesh, staring up at the ceiling's shifting constellations. They weren't real stars, just light simulations mimicking celestial drift, but they were close enough. He didn't know if rescue would ever come. He didn't know if his crash had even registered back home. But he was alive, warmer than he'd been in days, and increasingly fluent in the odd rhythm of alien concern. He hadn't just survived. He'd made them curious, maybe even impressed them. He pulled the mesh tighter and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he'd teach them about coffee. Or sarcasm. Maybe both. Something told him they weren't quite ready. By the 12th planetary rotation, Varnell's strength was back, though his left knee still made a small complaint every time he crouched. He'd stopped mentioning it aloud, partly because the aliens had no concept of phantom aches and partly because he was tired of Growl offering to scan his patella every 20 minutes. The ship's internal climate remained stable, warm and dry, with just enough humidity to keep his skin from cracking. Lizek had adjusted the light cycle to mimic Earth's late afternoon sun, a decision Varnell appreciated more than he admitted. The soft glow made the metallic walls feel less like a lab and more like a quiet greenhouse. That morning, Lizek entered the lounge with a delicate object cradled in a containment cradle. It looked like a cross between a fossilized sea anemone and a dissected clock. We located this in the lower ruins, Lizek said. It may have served as a neural interface or recreational device. We are uncertain. Varnell leaned forward. Looks like something you'd find in a thrift shop and immediately regret buying. The object emits low-frequency pulses when handled, Lizek continued. We hypothesize it responds to bioelectric fields. So it's interactive? In a sense. Would you be willing to engage with it? He picked it up carefully. The surface was cool, but not unpleasant. As his fingers wrapped around it, the object vibrated faintly, and subtle lights rippled across its surface. Okay, that's mildly creepy. You are the only test subject to elicit a response from it, Lizek said. We observed no reaction when handling it ourselves. Maybe it likes warm-blooded users. Did the original builders have similar biology? Unknown. No organic remains were recovered. The light shifted again, forming a small, flickering spiral. That's new, Varnell said. It's doing something different now. Growl entered mid-conversation, glancing at the object. The spiral symbol appeared in several wall etchings. It may denote transfer or memory. Varnell turned the object slowly. Memory as in storage? Possibly. Well, if I suddenly start reciting their tax code, pull the plug. Venu arrived shortly after, carrying a flat panel. We analyzed the spiral structure. It aligns with mnemonic patterning found in several extinct civilizations. Is that your polite way of saying it might download ancient nightmares into my brain? It is not designed for invasive transmission. More likely, it requires a voluntary neural imprint. Varnell set the object down. Let's keep my neurons unimprinted. Thanks. Lizek carefully replaced it in the cradle. You exhibited no distress. We will catalog the interaction as neutral. Varnell stretched his arms overhead. So, what's the plan now? I'm guessing you didn't haul me out of a frozen ditch just to watch me play with alien knickknacks. You are scheduled for full mobility assessment this cycle, Growl said. Assuming you pass, we will authorize your access to our long-range systems. Meaning I finally get to send a signal home? Yes, Venu said. We have isolated a suitable relay point in orbit. Transmission delay will be minimal. Varnell stood. Lead the way. They guided him through a corridor he hadn't seen before. The walls were darker here, lined with panels that shimmered faintly when passed. The floor sloped upward, and he realized they were ascending toward the ship's upper module. The final chamber opened into a domed observatory, its curved ceiling displaying a full view of the planet's upper atmosphere. A narrow console stood at the center, surrounded by a ring of low seats. It reminded him of an old planetarium. "This is where you make the calls?" "We conduct all off-planet transmissions from here," Venu said. "The relays are synchronized to avoid detection." "Who are you hiding from?" "There are entities that monitor anomalous broadcasts," Lizek said. "We prefer to remain unnoticed." Varnell stepped up to the console. The interface adjusted immediately, displaying a simplified set of controls in English. Someone had taken the time to localize the language settings. "Appreciate the translation. We configured it based on your verbal patterns," Growl said. "It is not exact, but sufficient." A soft chime indicated the system was ready. Varnell hesitated. "What if no one's listening?" "There is always a statistical chance of failure," Venu said. "Yeah, but I'm not great with statistics. Never trusted them. Too many decimal points." "You may proceed when ready." He tapped in a short coded message, then added a longer burst for redundancy. No dramatic speeches. Just the essentials: name, status, coordinates, current condition. He finished with a request for pickup and a timestamp. The system confirmed transmission. "Signal sent," Varnell said. "Now we wait." Growl nodded. "Estimated reply window is 14 to 20 cycles." "That's encouraging." "You will remain aboard until then. We will monitor for response indicators." As they returned to the main deck, the lights dimmed slightly, marking the transition into the ship's rest phase. Varnell moved toward the galley, pouring himself a cup of the amber nutrient blend he'd grudgingly grown fond of. Lizek joined him at the table. "You have adapted efficiently to non-Earth conditions," it said. "I don't know if efficient is the right word. I've mostly just been making it up as I go. That is consistent with observed human behavior." He sipped a drink and leaned back. "You ever visit Earth?" "No. Our kind does not engage in direct planetary contact. Probably for the best. We're not exactly low-key. You possess chaotic tendencies. That's putting it diplomatically." Lizek folded its limbs. "We have learned from your presence. Your survival contradicted multiple assumptions. Glad to be an anomaly. You are not the first human we've studied, but you are the first to recover autonomously under suboptimal conditions." Varnell set down the cup. "Wait, there were others?" "Historical encounters. Unrelated to your current mission. Outcomes were less favorable." He didn't press. It felt like the kind of file you didn't want to open unless absolutely necessary. Later, in the corridor outside the stasis bay, Varnell paused as a low chime echoed from deeper within the vessel. Growl approached, holding a small reader. "A transmission echo has returned." Varnell's pulse quickened. "From Earth?" "Affirmative. A vessel has been dispatched. Estimated arrival, 8 planetary cycles." He exhaled slowly. "That's good. That's very good. You will be transferred at orbital threshold. We will remain planet-side." "You're not coming with?" "Our role is observation. We do not participate in retrieval." He nodded. "Well, I owe you more than I can explain. You owe us data, which you have generously provided." Varnell chuckled. "Fair enough." By the time the 8th cycle passed, he was standing on the upper deck again, fully geared in a fresh evac suit provided by the incoming team. The aliens stood nearby, silent but attentive. Before boarding the shuttle, he turned to them. "You saved my life, gave me shelter, and fed me an alarming number of blended root-based soups. That's more than I expected from strangers." "You were not a stranger," Lizek said. "You were a variable. Best compliment I've had in months." "Will you recount this to your kind?" Growl asked. "Absolutely. Though I might leave out the part where I almost cried over a blanket. That would be wise." The shuttle's hatch opened with a hiss. Varnell stepped inside, pausing once more. "Take care of this place," he said. "And if you ever do visit Earth, I'll buy you a burger." Lizek blinked. "We will research the appropriate condiments." The hatch closed. As the shuttle lifted, parting the clouds and revealing the thin line of space above, Varnell watched the planet shrink below. Cold, remote, hostile, and yet strangely unforgettable. He hadn't just survived it. He'd left it better than he'd found it.